So welcome everybody for this wonderful morning, wonderful Friday morning. We have been looking very much forward to be with you today and to enjoy this this session with you. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Lars Heislund, and I'm the moderator of today. I moderate things like this for Brandstifter and also for Click Institute, and I've been working with Niels for almost a year now, and on communicating with his crowd, and I'm really proud to be part of this learning session. What I would like you to do, there will be some practicalities, so we're here until 10 o'clock. We'll try to be sharp. If you have any questions on the way, just write them in the chat box, and I'll make sure that we have all the questions answered if you have them on the way. We will also be working here in Zoom. You know, if there is an attack, it never happens, but if there is, if some Russians wants to take over the meeting, or North Korea wants to do it, you just log off, and then we log in again, and then we'll be together again. So don't worry about that. Just use the same link if that should happen. But it's really great that you are here, and we are really excited today to learn from one of the greatest companies in the world. I know I do actually think that most people have been to McDonald's, and just to make sure, if you've been to McDonald's for the last 3 months, just write yes in the chat box so we can see how many people has been at McDonald's for the last 3 months. And if you have been this year, just write it too, so you know that at least you have some experiences. We have a lot of other people joining in. Lucas, we have Rolf from New Zealand. Jens Christensen had a little. Think that it's a little early for a burger, but they also serve breakfast at McDonald's, so you can absolutely have that. But it's such a pleasure to have you here, and I've been really looking forward to present to you two fantastic guys. Most of you probably know Niels. Niels, for me, he's the business professor. He's a super expert into this area of continuous business improvement, and I'm just amazed with all the great stuff that he's doing for companies all around the world. We also today joined with Jacob Stabell who's the vice president of McDonald's in Japan, leading thousands of restaurants and thousands of people, we had a dry run through on Tuesday, and I know that there's so much good stuff waiting for you out there. So I'm really excited for that. Today's program will be that we'll have Niels presenting for us. A very short introduction to CBI, and also introducing McDonald's, seen from his continuous business improvement perspective. And then, of course, we'll have Jacob, who will talk about how they do continuous business improvement at McDonald's. So with no further ado, I will give the floor to Niels Georg Christiansen.
Yes, and here I am, and thank you very much for the introduction, Lars. And we have Jacob on the Japan line. So what I will do now is two things. I will, for all the newcomers to this environment, so to say, to webinars, then I will share with you what is CBI, why CBI, how CBI. So that will be the starting point. And let me share my screen. So I will give you an introduction to CBI, and I will give you a short introduction to McDonald's. And then we should be ready for Jacob. So let's go forward. Let me see here. I have a challenge. It can be solved. What are you seeing here? You see a peppercorn. 500 years ago, for 1 kilo peppercorn, you had to pay 1 kilo gold in Northern Europe. 1 kilo gold to 1 kilo pepper. Amazing. Nowadays you have to pay you can for 1 kilo gold get 30,000 kilo pepper. That's amazing development. We have also another expression of the same thing actually. That is, what is needed? How much time do you need to get enough to get a burger, a beef, a piece of bread, a piece of cheese? It also have just declined and declined and declined. And we can continue on several things. Last week I observed that the use of gasoline for trucks have been reduced with 97%. 97% reduction of fuel the last 35 years. If you take all what come out of on pollution in total, it's amazing what we are doing. And of course, we have to decide what kind of focus we have. And but in the end, we are able to create improvements, roughly speaking, 4% year in and year out as humans across the world. And we can do it better, faster, smarter, cheaper, cleaner, everything. And of course, we have to discuss what to get done and get it done. And that is what CBI is about. To say it short, CBI, continuous business improvement, is just the ongoing effort to improve products, services, and processes in the business. So we, wherever we are, whatever we do, improve our daily work by considering what can be done smarter, simpler, faster, and so on. And that is simply CBI. So the big CBI, that is innovations. And then we have all the smaller things, and we are even not aware about it sometimes when we do things smarter or simpler, that it is actually CBI. But it doesn't matter. We get it done as teams, as organizations, as humans, and as societies actually also. So here we have the CBI formula. That's the way we do CBI in New Future Formulae. And our starting point is always what is the objective? We are asking the stakeholders, that's the employees, the management, the owners, the customers, the suppliers, and based on that, we create a design for a framework to be done again and again and again through the years ahead. We operate in half-year cycles, and the first step is to have an analyzing day or 2 days perhaps, a session where we put people together, they map the world as it is, we see potentials, we reflect, and we decide things to get done. And we get the things done. That is the next step. And that is in 100 days or so to realize a lot of things. And based on that, then we have to consider what have happened when we have succeeded in a sprint on 100 days. What should be added on? What should be taken out? How can we develop people? How can we develop systems? And based on that, we are able to run wave after wave in half-year cycles. And thereby we are living the CBI formula, as you see here, in very, very different manners, in different companies, in different groups. What we always strive for is to beat the competitors. So if you have an improvement rate on 5% on a year-to-year basis, and your competitors have 3%, then you are a winner. And if you have 5% and the competitors have 8%, then you have to be a winner and move to, let's say, 10, for example. So that's our way of working. It could also be other KPIs. This is the end result. What we strive for is a balanced development and create continuous improvement of processes and products and develop people and develop systems and do that in parallel in a continued growth to benefit of the company, of the society, and the world actually in the end. So that was 5 minutes short. What is CPI? Now I will give a short introduction to McDonald's. We have discussed this, and we think the right way is to consider this as we have decided to go to McDonald's. All of you have decided to go to McDonald's. You have probably done that several times in your life, and I can understand a few minutes ago that yes, a lot of you have been there the last year, even some yesterday. But this is a special meal. It will be served by Chief Franchise Officer Jacob Stabell, and he will give you a valuable business meal, and he will share his business receipts on how they drive and steadily improve their business. So in the next 6-7 minutes, I will give you an overview. So when we arrive, we will be ready and we will be hungry. The brothers Richard and Maurice McDonald's and their father opened in 1937 a food stand near Monrovia Airport in California with hot dogs. Hamburgers were later added to the menu. In 1940, the brothers moved to East San Bernardino in California. The restaurant was renamed McDonald's Barbecue and had 25 menu items, mostly barbecue. Until that point, then everything was usual business. But 4 huge innovations have happened since then, and I would like to share them with you. They have been able to execute them and in a disciplined manner stay them competitive by using continuous business improvements. And the 4 innovations we will go through in few minutes. That is these 4 innovations. And build on these innovations, the great McDonald's people, they have just continuously improved on them again and again and again on each of these innovations since. So the first innovation took place in 1948. The McDonald's brothers realized that most of their profits came from selling hamburgers. They closed down their successful car hop drive-in and established a streamlined system with a simple menu, which in the end only consisted of hamburgers, cheeseburgers, and French fries, and coffee, soft drinks, and milkshakes. The new restaurant was a self-service operation. The basic concept we have experienced so many times ourselves was invented. The restaurant name was changed to simply McDonald's. It was clear that McDonald's had given birth to the fast food concept. Through the years, a lot of CPI improvements have been created. The lead time of a meal was reduced from 20 minutes to below 60 seconds. 75 detailed standard operation procedures, SOPs, were created to give a sure and stable operation. Serious training programs for all employees, new products, marketing world class. That's just to mention some few examples. That was innovation number 1. And second innovation number 2. Second innovation happened in 1954. The McDonald's brothers, they had 6 local franchise locations in operation. But the franchisors, they were not willing to follow the guideline and this called SOPs, which was something perhaps or perhaps not from the car industry. And the McDonald's brothers were not able to give the practical leadership and fine-tuning their ideas and concepts. Ray Kroc, a seller of milkshake machines, learned that the McDonald's brothers were using surprisingly many of his machines. So he took a look, and immediately he saw the huge potential of McDonald's. And he suggested they franchise the restaurant throughout the country. And the brothers, they were obviously skeptical, having problems in managing 6 restaurants. But Kroc, he simply took over the management and the leadership. And in just 15 years, they moved from 6 to 1,000 restaurants. From 6 to 1,000 in just 15 years. Amazing. And then the third innovation happened in 1956. To continue the growth, simply McDonald's missed money. And a finance man, Sonneborn, he came up with a concept by owning the real estate, the land that the future franchises would be built on. And he created a third company, Franchise Realty Corporation. And a fourth innovation happened in 1967. And that was that the first restaurant outside the US opened its doors. It was Canada, it was globalization starting there. In 1971, the first Japanese restaurant opened. And 70s, 80s, and 90s, growth. And on the way, McDonald's became a symbol of free market economy. When the first McDonald's opened in Moscow, Soviet Union, in Eastern Europe, and in China. It became a symbol of standardization in a globalized world, and it also became a symbol of fast food. And finally, it became a symbol itself. The brand is considered as one of the most valuable in the world. Today, most activities in McDonald's is outside US. So McDonald's is obviously an excellent organization, and I guess that we all have occasionally been a little bit impressed or fascinated by McDonald's. Just observe these figures. Amazing. How do McDonald's realizing the passion, systems, and routines for again and again strengthening your day-to-day's operation in the different parts of McDonald's? How again and again meet or exceed expectations of stakeholders, customers, employees, suppliers, franchisors, and owners? How to stay excellent by continuous business improvement. That's what we will hear about now, arriving McDonald's. And that's my short overview about McDonald's, the innovations behind they have been able to stick to and improve on through the last 60, 70 years actually. So that said, I give the word to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Niels, for helping us through this and to lead us through both the CBI formula and also the introduction to McDonald's. Just a comment from my side, you know, I'm really impressed with the results that you're creating with the CBI formula, gaining more than 4 to 16% on annual improvements, which is absolutely fantastic. But you know, when I also look at McDonald's and see what they do on a worldwide basis, I've had the opportunity to visit McDonald's, I think in 100 countries, something like that. So I'm pretty experienced in McDonald's, and I think it's so impressive what they do when you see that the experience you get in Sri Lanka, you get in Japan, you get in Denmark, you get in the US, you get it in South Africa, all different kind of places, that you can get the same experience over and over again, and that you can return so high quality and such good business results for your franchisees. I'm really proud to introduce to you Jacob Stabell, who is the Chief Franchise Officer of McDonald's in Japan and a Vice President. He has become a very good friend, and he's also a very diligent leader with a lot of international experience with a fantastic organization. So Jacob, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much, Lars, Nils, for the introduction and the forewords. And hello everybody. Konnichiwa, as we as we say in Japan. I'm calling in from Japan right now, and I'm very excited to be here and speak to you today. Hopefully, I'll be able to just take you through a little bit of background and discussion on continued business improvement, as well as the McDonald's business model, and then still allow some time for questions, because I do know that an hour is not a lot, everything considered. So please allow me to take you through this, and then we can hopefully discuss afterwards. First of all, yeah, as you know, or just heard, my name is Jacob, and you can just roughly see here what I've been doing for more or less the last 30 years. So I have been spending my professional time or career in McDonald's, starting in Denmark, and then elevating to a career in both Singapore and Japan, working for global franchising as well as Japan market over the last 6 years. So yeah, that's basically me. People would in the system, they would consider me a fast food dinosaur, because I've been around for so long in the McDonald's system. But I can tell you that coming to Japan, which is a market that opened in 1971, I'm meeting people here which have been around for much longer. For example, the COO of McDonald's in Japan, Shimadara-san, has been in the system for 47 years. So very, very experienced people to meet all around the world, including Japan. So with no more hesitation, let me jump into to the McDonald's world. And in order for us to discuss continued business improvement, I think it's important that we just take a step back and have a look at the fundamental philosophies and also the basic business model of McDonald's, because it's pretty important to understand what's the background in order for us to talk about those elements. So as Nils also mentioned, the business was created, or it was globalized by Ray Kroc, and he had I would say, some pretty powerful quotes, and one of them was, if you're working in a system such as the hamburger business only to make money, well, you will definitely not necessarily be successful. You have to love what you're doing, and then success will ultimately be yours. And another thing that he also said at a very, very early stage, even though it was quite frustrating for him, was, if we set the franchisees up for success, McDonald's will ultimately prevail or flourish. Now, I think this is extremely important to emphasize, because today McDonald's is almost or more than 94% franchised across the world. There are 5,500 franchisees owning most of the restaurants, and this is a testament or a proof that that model has actually been the driving force of growing with McDonald's across 120 countries, and the franchisees has also been a driving force behind continuous business improvement. Holding the leadership and McDonald's officers accountable, constantly pushing for us to do better, so that we could expand and grow our business. I think one of the key elements which is very much embedded in our system is approaching the overall partnership and our business philosophies from both a rational and emotional element. And if we just start quickly talking about the rational, the framework around McDonald's, let me just take you through a couple of elements. First of all, making money is apparently, like any other business, is an objective and the foundation of any business. And the reason why McDonald's have focused on expanding with franchisees have actually been, you know, due to this very simple model, as you see on the screen here, you know, the share prices are very much, you know, they're very much calculated and pushed based on the future cash flow of McDonald's, which is again heavily impacted by real estate and the brand. Whereas the hamburger profit, as you can see, that's actually only a multiple of 6. So if McDonald's were just doing the restaurant business themselves without engaging with franchisees, then, you know, I think it's fair to say that, you know, the present value of our business would most likely look pretty different. So with those real estate elements that Niels also talked about, you know, early on getting introduced, and the royalties that we collect from the franchisees who work one business at a time, we've managed to establish a foundation which has been shown to be pretty strong. Another thing, and just, you know, visualized by the football field here, is setting up a very clear framework of rules and responsibilities. Because, you know, when franchisees come into the system, many of them would be very well, they would like to be very independent, but becoming a successful franchisee in a system as McDonald's is not about being necessarily independent, but being interdependent. That means that you understand, you know, the maneuverability within the framework, what we can and can't do, so that we ultimately, you know, win on the longer stretch. And visualized by this, you know, understand the rules, accept the rules, and then really be innovative and you know, develop your abilities within that. That's the key to success. And what we have also, I guess, managed to brew pretty well with McDonald's. Just to become a little bit practical, let me just share with you sort of the headlines of 2, you know, franchise structures that we use across the entire world. Conventional licensing, which was the starting point, and then there's development licensing, which has come a little bit later, but is also today across many markets. Now, in a conventional franchising structure, the franchisees would usually have a 10 or 20-year term, and would be full-time committed, you know, engaged in the business. So if franchisees or investors are you know, buying into McDonald's just to profit from it, but not necessarily be physically engaged, McDonald's is not a system for you. It is very much driven by, you know, we usually say ketchup in the veins, that you need to really love the business, love the employees, and enjoy being in your restaurants on a day-to-day basis and during weekends to ensure that customer satisfaction is high. Outside that, there's a number of fees and structures around the contract, which is important to understand. But one thing that I would emphasize is, you know, as you can see in the bottom, is the major remodel every 7 to 10 years. So when you go to McDonald's, you've probably seen that, you know, from time to time, new signs, new furniture, a new atmosphere in the restaurant is being introduced. Now, this is one of the key things that has really helped drive the business and keep us up to speed and you know, relevant for the customers. And those investments are predominantly made by the franchisees. So every 7 to 10 years, they would spend a significant amount of money to upgrade their restaurants, to keep them current and nice and inviting. And this is also continued business improvement. You know, whatever was relevant 20 years ago is not necessarily relevant today. That goes for the furniture, the experience, the product, the menus, and also how you know, franchisees as well as employees are trained and introduced to the system. The other big contract structure, business structure that we have is called development licensing. And that is being introduced, or have been actually since 1975, but has taken a little bit of a turn to the more you know, global over the last 15-20 years. just to give you an example from Europe, the Scandinavian countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland, my own home countries and some of yours was development or was licensed to a development licensee called Guy Hans, the owner and founder of Terra Firma out of UK, just a few years ago. So today he has the franchising and operating rights of all those 4 countries. And we have many other examples around Europe as well as the entire world. Now, this is a different beast entirely. The franchisees get a 20-year multi-unit franchise agreement, and they get much more, empowerment to run both the business and the supply chain and the marketing and so on and so forth. But again, so 2 very different models, but both of them have proven to be very, very effective and quite a success. At the end of the day, when we talk contracts, I think it's important to segue into the more emotional parts to say we do not run around and hit the franchisees in the head with the contracts and hold them accountable every single day on what they signed 15 or 20 years ago. That shouldn't be necessary. So as in any other long-term relationship, it's only an absolute crisis that we have to rely or go back to the contract. And I think this is a very important part of the philosophy, which brings me to talk a little bit more about the emotional side of the business. Because at the end of the day, what McDonald's have done, entering into so many countries has been, after a lot of struggle in the beginning, is truly, respecting and understanding the different cultures that, are deeply embedded in many different countries. As you know, we all have our individual culture, and there was a lot of frustration in the beginning when they started to expand to other countries, because they were meeting closed doors and misunderstandings were made. So just introducing a brand like McDonald's into another country is not an easy thing. What they sort of the silver bullet was to really understand after having issues with this was to team up with local people. And truly understand, get local cooperation going, and then accepting and being a little bit more humble about, even though we have a fantastic hamburger business, that does not necessarily mean that we will be invited in wherever we knock on the door. And that was also sorted out. And after, finding the sort of the formula to do that, then McDonald's could start globalizing on a bigger scale. With franchisees, it's important to also understand that they have fundamentally a different perspective than us as franchisor. I have been a franchisor for more than 25 years in those different positions that I've held, and one of the things that has been really fundamental is, and for me as well, has been to learn, the understanding of how franchisees actually think. Whether they have 3 restaurants or they have 400, the fundamental elements are actually the same. So really taking a good hard look at ourselves and being able to put ourselves in the mind of the franchisees have been a absolute key reason to get these relationships to work over decades of time, because this is not just a 1 or 2 or 3 year thing. These franchisees, they are in this body and soul from until they actually retire. So it is a little bit like really accepting that we are different. We are coming from different perspectives, and we see the world from different angles. Not to say we're necessarily as different as a dog and a cat, but anyways, I would always use the picture of this very passionate tango dance. it is such a fantastic way of dancing, but at the same time, if you make one little mistake, you can easily stumble on each other's feet. Fundamentally, being in a passionate but also from a different perspective, one is leading, another is following, and we are really we need to look good and hard in the mirror on a day-to-day basis to make sure that things are balanced. Because nothing is perfect, and that goes for McDonald's as well. We've had our fair share of issues, and can sort of summarize everything in this business marriage to say, every single situation that has gone wrong, and we have also had a lot of those, they can basically be explained in similar fashion as a marriage. If we had an ability to deal with conflict, trying to avoid the discussion, having poor communication skills, unrealistic expectations, and last but not least, the lack of networks and unbiased outside objective support. So McDonald's has been the biggest and baddest boat in the sea, basically. But that does not mean that we should not be humble and sometimes ask for outside people to come in and look at us objectively and tell us the truth of what they see. And I do think that this is one of the things that we have probably become better at over the last 10 or 15 years, whereas before that we were a little bit too sure of ourselves. And not inviting in, so we had to deal with issues to fix our business. So that was a little bit about the business model, this framework, the structure, the contracts, systems, as well as the more emotional part of truly understanding that McDonald's franchisor and franchisees are fundamentally different, but in the same boat together. So let's talk a little bit about low practical continued business improvement in McDonald's and what we have done, and I'll give you a couple of examples from both the big world as well as my own experience. First of all, engaging with the franchisees and setting up a very diligent model of evaluating the business, discussing what is working and what is not working, inviting the franchisees in. I'm just showing here on the screen a plan to win process, which is an engagement process, and that is from a major European market. These 5 different teams that you see in the top, people, place, price, product, and promotion, would usually be have both officers or leaders as well as franchisees meeting again and again to discuss different elements of the business and sharing their expertise, their brainstorming and coming up with plans or initiatives. Now, as we go through all of these elements, this is during a full 12-month cycle, and it happens again and again. Every year, this process is being done. In smaller markets, it would be modified. It would not necessarily look like this, but in bigger markets, it would be a pretty diligent process. It's a circle of life where we look at the customer experience, do market quests. So as you can see here, the first element is actually going out and teaming up and going out, visiting competitors. Burger King, coffee shops, other informal eating out, and having a customer experience to see, hey, where are they in terms of us? And then, we would have meetings, inputs to the overall marketing plan as well as the execution plan would be given. Franchisees would reconvene with us, and then ultimately a final plan would be presented. Usually that would be in October for final approval and then to be executed in the following year. So this is just to show you one example of how all elements of both customers, employees, franchisees, as well as corporate people are put together and are working together to continuously look at the business, reevaluate what we're doing, and make a plan that will build the business moving forward. Another example that I wanted to share with you today is what we call the ROIP. It's Restaurant Operations Improvement Process. Now, the ROIP is an operational tool which is basically global. It's globally implemented, which is a cooperation between the business consultant from the head office and the franchisee to look at the individual restaurant performance, business, as well as the overall organization, and then make audits, visits, continued meetings in order to improve the business. So this is actually consultants coming out and meeting with the franchisees, and as you can see in the top, it starts by looking at the overall business. How did you do last year? What are your plans for this year? And this will be a 4 or 5 hour meeting, simply unraveling the whole performance within QSC, within finance, within people, staffing, local marketing and promotion, things like that. Then a plan is created. Then consultant support visits are done, continuously. And then at a certain time, this is either announced or unannounced, the restaurant will receive a brand standard visit. Now, a brand standard visit is actually a full day visit where the consultant comes in and looks at all procedures and standards in the restaurant, all the way from food safety and hygiene in the back to how the products are being made, to how hot the toaster is, to how cold the drinks are. They will be using stopwatches to measure, times, service, how fast can we put together an order, what are the line time outside the restaurant, both in the drive-through as well as the front counter. So really diligent auditing process, and the franchisee restaurant or McCopco restaurant can both pass or fail. They have to have at least 80% score in all of the different categories to pass. If they fail, they will get follow-up visits. That will be accompanied by customer experience visits, as you can see in the bottom CVs. Now, this is just a consultant coming in completely unannounced. It can be weekday, weeknights, weekends, and it takes roughly 45 to 50 minutes or to 60 minutes. And the consultant will simply take the approach of a customer, and they would look at QSC, the food, the service, the smile, and then they will have a flash report on how we saw the experience today. And that is then finally also supported by unannounced food safety audits from outside. Food safety is such an important thing for a business like McDonald's. So we have outside food safety auditors coming, as well as doing the internal food safety checks. As you can understand, McDonald's is fragile in that particular element. So we need to be way better than anybody else to make sure that we don't make any mistakes on food safety. As you can see in the bottom, if a franchisee restaurant or a restaurant in general continues to not perform, and we find big issues, the restaurant can ultimately be put into something called IPER, underperforming or improvement process underperforming restaurants. So that means that it goes out of the ROIP and into a process where it will get significantly more attendance from consultants and the franchisee to fix the problems. We cannot allow restaurants to be underperforming. They need to be on par with our standards. Now, one thing that was I would call it a game changer for McDonald's. Again, this is years ago. It was introducing the NABIT structure. It's short for Nuts and Bolts Integration Team. It became apparent that all these executive meetings, as the business grew, these high-level executives, running markets or multiple markets, they had a lot of nice plans and a lot of nice ideas, and they were having a lot of nice meetings, and they were having a lot of coffee, and they were very ambitious. But at the end of the day, only a fraction or a small percentage ever came to life in the restaurants, because these executives were not really aware of what it meant to introduce these plans into a very buzzing and very busy McDonald's restaurant with 50, 60 employees and customers lining up every single day. So the NABIT process was actually, I would almost call it the silver bullet, introducing a much more lean and down-to-earth implementation structure that simply forced the leaders and the officers to take a different approach. We might come up with all kinds of great ideas, but if the restaurants can't implement them, why should we do it? It doesn't create anything else but frustration. And we spend a lot of resources and money on trying to create something that is dead in the water. So what was introduced was something to really take a good, to simply dissolve that old legacy structure and create something that really worked. And this is just, to give you an example. Every market around the world, they have a NABIT process with multiple workshops, boot camps and sessions accompanied by information materials very specifically outlining what are we going to do, when are we going to do it, and how are we going to do it. And it's not just paper. I'm showing you a couple of pages from a NABIT magazine, but it's accompanied by actual workshops where restaurant managers, franchisees, and company people, they meet in a restaurant and they test it, they try it out. This is what's going to happen. So all franchisees would actually go out and do those new products or new equipments, and they would get a feel for it. They would try it, they would taste it, and we would do it all together. And then after introducing both the knowledge and the experience, the skills, then they would go back to their restaurants and do similar NABIT workshops in their restaurants. Managing directors, officers from the head office would be part of this. They're not sitting in their offices. They will be in the restaurants together with the franchisees and getting the same exposure to these kinds of things so that they know exactly what they're talking about. And it also harvests a lot of respect between the franchisees, seeing the CEO of the company rolled up sleeves and working, the grill and trying to make this new product. Makes a lot of synergy and really fuels a strong relationship and a belief in the business. So this NABIT process has been absolutely critical for the success that we have seen across the world in McDonald's. Last but not least, I'll just share a few examples. I know that we are running out of time and eating up our questions and answers, but let me give you a couple of low practical examples. Let me start with the stopwatch. Once, many years ago, I was meeting with a franchisee to do a diagnostic tool in one of his restaurants, and he was very confident about his drive-through because he had on the screen on paper he had seen some significant results and he had overall seen some good sales improvements. So we're standing in this drive-through lane, on a very cold December evening, wearing gloves and having a cup of coffee. And we're looking at the drive-through performance. And we start around 6 in the evening, which is a busy Friday night. And he is chatting and he's talking and he's very confident and he's sure that we're going to see something great. And yes, we did see something great. We saw a lot of cars lining up. Now, as I'm taking this stopwatch and I'm putting down into my notes how many seconds each car is using to go through the different elements, the franchisee, he starts to become more and more quiet because he can see that something is wrong. So after standing in this drive-through lane for roughly about 20 minutes, he says, Jacob, I need to, he gets all baffled. I need to go and see what's going on. There's something absolutely wrong with this. This is not usual. So he runs into the restaurant and he starts, leading and delegating and talking to what is going on in the kitchen. And I can see him and I'm And I'm smiling from ear to ear because I know that this franchisee is now going through a very, very strong learning experience, rediscovering his own business. The fact was that they were doing exactly as well as they were always doing, but the franchisee was looking at reports and screens and instead of just looking at the business from outside in. So after doing this, he was actually astonished and baffled, and he put together a plan. And in a few months' time, he built his sales in the drive-through between 6 and 8 in the evening. He built the sales with 20+%, 20+%, because he now looked at his business differently, and he started to put in, actions that actually fixed it. So this was just a low practical element or example of continued business improvement by having your hands in the machine, so to speak, and looking at your own business. Even though he was a very successful business owner, having 6 or 7, 8 restaurants and having people to run his restaurants, he was able to make some significant plans that helped his business. The other one I wanted to share with you is this: having a humble approach to yourself as well as the business you're in, regardless of how long you have been around. Let me give you a very recent example. The CEO of McDonald's in Japan, his name is Tamatsuhiro. He has 20 years of experience from Johnson & Johnson, and he's a very successful guy. When he entered McDonald's in Japan to take over the CEO role a couple of years ago, he went into training. Not 6 days, not 6 weeks, not 6 months, but actually almost a year, 9 months to be exact. He was out in the restaurants working day to day with the crew and the managers to fully understand the business before he took office and started working as a CEO. And he has time and time again reflected back on how important it was for him to actually experience the McDonald's business on the floor with the employees. And many of his decisions he makes today are influenced by that. Actually, franchisees who goes through 30, 40 years of career, they have part of their recycle to go through the basic management programs again every 10 years. So to stay up to speed on what is going on and what the young managers are being taught, every once in a while an elderly franchisee will come in and he will sit through these courses and he will listen and he will learn. It's called recycle your knowledge, back to school, we call it, but it's an embedded part of how McDonald's continue to stay sharp and up to speed, also when it comes to the knowledge part. Last but not least, and I'll not spend too much time on this, but this is revitalizing value. You've obviously all know about these very low-cost products that we have very deliberately to attract customers. However, an example from something that was again revitalized and bringing completely new energy into the system was the coin offer program that was introduced. In some other European countries, it's called the €1 program or EDAP, everyday affordable price. But we've always had very cheap products, and it has done very good to attract customers. We've always had that as a specific part of our business foundation. However, I just lost the screen here.
No, it was just me. Because we're almost 10 o'clock, and we definitely need some questions in. It's not to interrupt you, Jacob, but thank you very much for the wonderful introduction to how you do continuous business improvement in McDonald's. I know that we have some questions already in the chat, but I would like to give the floor to some of you out there for some questions for Jacob.
Yep.
We will, of course, end at 10 o'clock, but we are also hanging around afterwards if you have more questions. And we have recorded the session as well. So if you have to leave at 10 o'clock, we will send you the recording so that you can see more questions, so that you can see the answers to the questions if you have to leave at 10. So, but if you have a question from the floor, please just unmute yourself and ask the question.
Please.
Hey, Sylvia, do you have a question?
No, I don't have. Hello.
Okay, you were just unmuting yourself.
Sorry, I had to switch to earphone.
No problem. No problem.
But any other questions? Otherwise, we have questions from the floor. Fares from Tunisia is asking, how do you install a universal company culture in all countries? What is kind of the essence behind that, of the recipe?
A universal culture? Yeah. So I think first of all, there are several reasons why. In the beginning, when McDonald's was introduced to other countries, they would be accompanied by officers from US, from the mothership, so to speak. So they would be leading or setting up the business and making sure that the thinking and the structures and so on was adapted and handed over to those people taking charge. I think it has slightly modified to a different thinking, because today the influence from global franchising or from global co-op in Chicago to other markets has been very much downgraded. It's become much more localized on how the business is run. Much more respect, I would say, to adapt and adopt individual characteristics in markets, as well as in the cultures and atmospheres. So I think that the McDonald's leaders around the world, they have a touch point. There is a strong unity between the top leaders of the system, and they meet occasionally, both physically, well, not as much physically right now due to COVID, of course, as you all know, but they meet and they calibrate their internal opinions and approaches. We have a strong purpose and value composition, which is constantly being taught on all levels. Short answer to a major question. I don't think there's not any X factor or silver bullet to this. It's mostly about staying true to the values and keeping the conversation and the calibration going between leaders around the world. So that's probably the answer to that.
Great. Thank you very much. Jerome has asked for a question.
I ask some question?
Yeah, Jerome. Jerome.
Hi, Lars and Jacob. I think it was a nice session. Jacob, my question to you is, the customer experience and customer satisfaction. How do you guys monitor and keep that at the center of all the activities that are ongoing in the McDonald's operations?
Yeah, so many different things have been tried and tested in McDonald's, but we have been using very much mystery shopper programs over a number of years to have real experience, customer unannounced customer experience, and they would then submit reports, and we would manage and monitor the business around that. Today, we are using Net Promoter Score, Kodo elements. So we do have, it's all being digitalized, and you can through your phone, you can you can basically give your view on how you have seen the experience, both within quality, service, and cleanliness. And we are getting much more feedback from customers through these kinds of channels, which are basically part of our main KPIs as well. Customer satisfaction measured from these platforms are something that all restaurants, leadership teams, and entire markets are being held accountable for. So we take it very, very serious. At the end of the day, you know, it cannot stand alone, because we have to sort of supplement it with a number of other things, and that would also be very much, like I said before, market quests, having local customer engagement sessions where you basically invite customers in for, you know, coffee and donuts, and then you talk to them about, hey, what can we do better? What do you experience when you come here as a customer? And then really, you know, capture what they think and make action plans accordingly. So we have the big market systems and we have the more localized systems, one organization at a time, and all those things together are what we use to measure and improve the business.
Thanks a lot, Jacob.
Thank you very much, Jens. Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Sumi from Lund University in Sweden.
Hello.
Hello, it was very, very interesting lectures you gave.
Thank you.
Among many questions, I have to choose one. Recently, there were such a movement with slow food, healthy food, sustainabilities, which really became increasingly important questions. Did you in the McDonald's feel any change in your development, in your expansions during 60s, 70s, 80s and the recent development?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you know, again, it's also a very big question. So I'll try to see if I can answer it in a couple of minutes, because you know it's been one of the key things for many customers, and we have such a strong brand, you know that, but we also have a very fragile brand. This is me speaking, you know, my personal opinion. We have a fragile brand, and you know, there's a big difference between having a very visible brand and having brand loyalty. Now, loyalty is based on many other elements, as you know, and the loyalty to a brand like McDonald's is that the scores are not extremely high, you know. And there's a number of reasons for that. Obviously, there's the fact that we are selling, you know, fast food, hamburgers, French fries, and beverages. So, you know, at the end of the day, we have been scratching our head to figure out what to do in order to get, you know, a better, stronger trust and a stronger brand. And would the direction actually be to become a more healthy option or opportunity? And through that, a lot of different things have been introduced to McDonald's around the world. You have seen rye bread hamburgers. You have seen, you know, even to the maximum level, you know, of a local health authority approved burgers with, you know, low carb and things like that. Salads have been introduced. Vegetables as part of the menu, and it has all been, you know, it has all been in the thinking and in the spirit of what you just said. But the fact is that for almost all the initiatives that has been done, they have basically failed miserably, because and it comes back to the customers. You know, and I once talked to a guy who said, Jacob, you don't have to ask us what we want. You just provide us what we need. And what he was saying is, Jacob, if you ask me, I'm not going to tell you the truth. And this is exactly, you know, with every, you know, mother, many women on behalf of their children, they would be asking us to introduce healthier Happy Meals and, you know, salads and everything else. But at the end of the day, when people go to McDonald's, they do it to treat themselves. No, when I go to McDonald's, I want my Big Mac. I want my Quarter Pounder. I want to have a good time. So instead of trying to transform McDonald's into something which all customers should basically use every day or every second day, it's more about being true to what we are. We are the funny, you know, an occasional choice, easy, and it tastes good, and you can get it easy out of a window. You can sit down, the kids can play, but don't necessarily use McDonald's every day. You have to do a lot of things to stay healthy, right? But if you do all the right things, you can go to McDonald's once in a while, and still enjoy a good meal, you know, because, you know, the fact is that some of the products, or the perception of some of our products, including the beef quality, the nuggets quality, the potato quality, the perception is actually wrong. We're using some of the best ingredients that money can buy. But the reason why we can sell these things is because we have managed to scale it and do some strong negotiations with the suppliers, so we can still sell a Big Mac to a very reasonable price. Yeah, I could talk about this for an hour, but you know, you're hitting a very, very interesting topic. So I hope that gave you a little bit of answer to your question.
And it is also a very good point in continuous business improvement that you have to let the numbers show also what people want, because as you said, exactly. there's not necessarily, we're not necessarily expressing what we want, but actually money talks and numbers talks when it comes to change. We have more questions from the floor. Otherwise, we have questions here.
Jens is having a finger up. I don't know. Sorry.
Yes. One more. Yeah.
I'm sorry. One more. It was really interesting insight we got here toward my questions. But one more, whether your expansion rate is the same as during the last several decades.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's not the case. Up through the 90s, especially from 1993 sort of to 1998, 99, we had a massive expansion across the globe. The number of restaurants, you know, that a McDonald's restaurant opened every hour, 24/7, 365, somewhere around the world. It was absolutely crazy, but it has stagnated, and the number of markets have also been consolidated now for a number of years. So now it's more about optimizing the existing business in the existing markets. We also have a number of restaurants which are now getting old and tired. You know, we're talking entire buildings, so that's what we call a rebuild program. So sometimes we actually, you know, tear down an entire building and rebuild a new restaurant in the same spot. I don't see a massive expansion in terms of new countries and new places for the time being. I think everybody, and that goes for McDonald's as well, is very focused on dealing with, you know, the current crisis that we have, or the situation with the pandemic. And I think that will segue into the next couple of years, being very, very focused on doing the right things with what we have. So that would be my overall thinking and answer to that question.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we have Sadek for a question. Yes.
Yes. Hello, Jacob. Thank you for interesting presentation. I have a question about that. Among all the processes and procedures that you described, how much space there is for local improvement initiatives, but for individual employees, not only for the franchise owners that you said about,
Yeah.
and how this the motivation of individual employees is kept high for this. You know, not only to follow the procedures, but also to think creatively in the meantime.
Yeah. No, it's a great question, and obviously you're spot on, because McDonald's is very much standardized in many ways. So we have to be diligent around our procedures and standards, whether it's how we introduce new equipment systems to the business, or even down to the way we make a hamburger or a cheeseburger or a Big Mac, or how much ice is in a Coca-Cola and everything else. It's very much standardized. So you could say that, you know, when it comes to the employees, there is limited maneuverability in terms of being innovative and creative. What I think that is important to understand that we have created instead is an absolute passionate and desire to become the best of the best through the McDonald's system and using the McDonald's system, instead of necessarily trying to challenge it or move away from it, or inventing new things. So on the floor with the employees and with the managers, it's very much for them about, you know, being optimizing and perfectionizing every single standard to the benefit of the customers, and ultimately the sales and the cash flow. So that's probably the best view or answer I can give to that.
There is also a question of how you use technology for optimizing your daily operations on the customer side, maybe using machine learning, these kind of things. Are you using technology to enhance the business improvement? Is asked from Samuel.
Yeah, that was from you, Samuel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, one thing that has been increasingly important for McDonald's is getting back on track and maybe become a business leader within the digital structure of and it's basically getting to a level now where I'm struggling to understand how complex it actually is. But as long as it works for the customers, we have now mobile order pay. You see in many restaurants kiosks being set up. We have new POS systems being introduced, which are much smarter. The delivery systems are being, you know, cascaded around the country, which also goes through either iPad or telephone structures. But what I do think is most exciting is that the former CEO of McDonald's, Steve Easterbrook, he actually also required some artificial intelligence company, which is a very high level, system, and that was embedded into the McDonald's portfolio with the idea to make the whole ordering part of customers, make that even smarter. So what we are potentially looking at, this is just me raising a couple of interesting headlines, not to say when it's going to happen. You might be experiencing in the future that the customer or the McDonald's restaurant actually recognizes you. So when you go to the drive-through, due to cameras and facial recognitions and things like that, it will actually potentially, robot voice can actually talk to you, address you by name, and ask you, "Hey, Samuel, how are you? Do you want a Big Mac like last time?" So it remembers your order, and it remembers who you are, and it actually it actually facilitates. And then, you know, and if you were using a promotion last year, you were crazy about the nugget promotion, it will remember Samuel's craving for nuggets. So next time the promotion is on, it will say, "Hey, Samuel, we're having nuggets. Do you want them like you loved them a year ago?" That kind of thing. So I think this is obviously a little bit, for me still, I would say science fiction, but I've seen some of these things actually demonstrated, and it's very much on the top of our agenda in McDonald's, and let's see where we go. It's very exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. But again, I'm sharing plans and ideas. This is visionary, but yes, very much trying to embed the whole digitalization in the business.
Thank you. Great. Any other questions? Jens has a question. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for a very interesting presentation. It's the first time I learned so much about a company in so short time.
You're welcome, Jens.
Linköping University, professor there for 15 years. And I was very interested also, especially in your business model. And I like very much what you pointed out, that to have success, you must look at and understand and control and improve the two dimensions, the rational dimension on one side and the emotional dimension on the other side, and to combine them. This is very critical. So my question is, or not a question, but a comment, is that many people are really handicapped on the emotional dimension. I have weaknesses there, and I know you cannot command any guy, any human being to be emotional. So how do you try to develop weak persons or characters related to the emotional side?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Jens, and I think when we talk about emotional intelligence or being, there's only so much you can do, I would think. So I think you have to take a step back. I think when we both hire new executives and people, or hire new franchisees with a long-term relationship in mind, we go through a very, very thorough process and really investigate, interview, and discuss with them to make sure that they are actually emotional, strong, and not just two-dimensional, cynical business people. Because we've made our fair share of misses in all of this, and I have been dealing with franchisees from many years ago who were potentially not the most emotionally strong people, and it becomes such a difficult and long journey to deal with that. Ultimately, we have to go our separate ways. So I think it's very much about attacking the relationship as a partnership and almost as a marriage, making sure that we have enough time for a conversation, creating a risk-free environment where we can be absolutely honest with each other. Nothing is being recorded. Nothing is being, whatever you tell me and what I tell you, it stays in this room. Just tell me what's on your mind, and be brutally honest. Vent your frustration, and allowing that to happen in a business relationship is I think is something that really nurtures and makes it work over time. I've been in conversations with franchisees, with new people who when we left, they were absolutely shocked, completely white in the face, and say, "Jacob, what just happened?" How he was absolutely crazy. He was aggressive. He was sweating. He was so, I thought he wanted to hit you. and I said, look, it's not about that. It's about, I would almost say to these guys, I would always say, what's the alternative? Either you're passionate, and with passion comes both frustration and love and hugging, but also sometimes a little bit of fighting, or you don't just, the alternative is just, I don't care. I'm sitting back and I don't really care. So if you put it in perspective, I would rather deal with passionate people and sometimes have a little bit of an argue and a little bit of a situation, rather than just dealing with people who I don't care. That's not the spirit of McDonald's. And I think creating that environment and constantly making sure that we can have those conversations with the franchisees and the employees have been very well structured in McDonald's, and that's probably the reason why we have been able to sort of build on that over decades.
Thank you very much, Jacob, for that. Samuel has another question.
Yes, hello.
Hey,
thank you for this wonderful insights on how to continuously improving your business. I was wondering, how are you looking into completely new business ideas? How do you start innovating completely from scratch, either locally or on a global level? And how do you listen to your employees? Is it all the way from the bottom and letting them, talk about and explain why we should make these changes, or is it more, top down? What is the structure of completely new innovations?
Yeah, it's again a great question and something. Yeah, McDonald's was definitely, I would call it, top down managed at a certain time. It was, you have your basic hierarchy of leaders, and then plans were made, and then everybody was told what to do in the restaurants. Depending on what culture you're in, you have to remember that it's actually in European culture, Scandinavian culture, that kind of structure doesn't work at all. The more flat it is, the better. In many of the European, that's part of our culture. We are very much needed. We need to be involved. We need to be heard. We need to be talked to. Explain why we have to do things, and so on and so forth. That's not the case in Asia, I can tell you. And this, working with the Asian countries, China and Malaysia and Taiwan and also Japan, the employees actually like to just get told what to do. So if you just show me what to do and how to do it, I'm just happy as a son, and I will go and do it, and that's it. So you cannot really say that there is one size that fits all, because you have to really respect the different cultures around the world. That said, when it comes to involving employees in many markets, the speaking, the microphone of the employees have been upgraded increasingly over a number of years. We usually refer to it as brown bag meetings, and brown bag means that you take a brown bag of food and then you sit down and then you talk to the employees and you share some hamburgers and you talk to them about, hey, what do you think about McDonald's? How do you like working here? Do you have any ideas? And that is actually done, and the employees are in small committees. They are restaurant by restaurant. They're fueling in their ideas to what we can do better. Because at the end of the day, who knows more about what the reality is of the business than the employees on the floor? Is it some high-level executive sitting in a big chair in a fancy office who knows what's going on or most about it, or is it the employees who are sweating, dealing with the customers and the equipment and all of that on a day-to-day basis? So finding that balance of also inviting them in and giving their perspective and ideas to the business has definitely proven to be very, very powerful, depending on where we are, in what part of the world. But overall, it has become a much more embedded part of McDonald's over the last, I would say, 15, 20 years, and also a reason for continued business improvement.
Jacob,
Yeah, Charlie. Yeah.
I have a question. You mentioned about the corporate consultants that are coming to the restaurants, and
yep.
Also, are your corporate consultants also agents of benchmarking best practice from restaurants to other restaurants? They advise such practices to owners of other restaurants, or you want to just for owners to reinvent some practices themselves while dealing with problems, because maybe they are more convinced, that they develop them and they are more devoted to the practices.
Yeah, I think, you know, that the role of the business consultant is wearing multiple hats. It's basically one of the most difficult jobs I've, you know, because at one hand you have to be both a police officer. You come in, you audit the restaurant, and you give, you know, the franchisee a hard time or fail, you know, in a report. The next minute you're a coach or a trainer. You're showing the employees how certain things are done. In the next or the next day, you can be a friend or somebody who's sitting down and having a beer and talking about life and death and everything in between. So you're wearing these multiple caps all the time, and these business consultants, they really have to be, back to what we talked about before, Jens, with emotional and rational. They have to be very, very smart because they're moving around in all of these different roles. I think to answer your question, I think that, you know, we have some elements of opportunity in McDonald's when it comes to the future consulting of the business, because what I just explained to you is both you know, the positive, but that's also a challenge, finding people who can actually manage those very different competencies and go and do a good job. I can tell you that they don't hang on the trees. There's even experienced McDonald's people. It is very difficult to find people who can actually do that. So what I think we should do, or what we're looking at, is reorganizing what does restaurant support actually look like? How can we sort of divide certain job aspects into becoming realistic, so franchisees get certain support from certain people on elements, and they get another different kind of support from relationship partners over here, so that it doesn't become all things are hanging on the shoulders on one person to do all of these things. So I think that we are looking to maybe modify or innovate that structure as we move into the future. That is what I'm preaching. To my global colleagues, but I cannot tell you what it looks like as of yet. But that is some of the challenges that we are also experiencing. Regardless of our success, we have some challenges on that as well.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you. We have time for the last and final question. Anyone out there who has a final question?
Peter.
Yeah, I can go on with one. Thanks very much, Jacob. And I'm not a deep insider, but I've been turning burgers at McDonald's for 3 years back in my young time. So I know everything you say is true. I can confirm that on that part of involving the employees in that aspect. One thing I do feel in that aspect is that coming into it today, it miss a bit of the personal touch. You talk about artificial intelligence and robots as well, and so on. So how are you seeing that from the perspective? And then maybe if I could place a second one, that is that I know the improvements on the restaurants itself is driven, like you stated, but what about on the back office? What are you using this to? How is the continuous improvement on a corporate level? So because I know we are very limited in you can say continuous improvement with inside the restaurant, but what on a corporate level? Maybe that's more interesting for me to get to know.
Thanks, Peter. Two very good and also very complex questions. I'll try and answer both of them. So first of all, to speak about, you know, the back office and how these information are used. You know, we have a structure. The back office is sort of a channeling information back to the mothership on everything that we do, and you know, it's pretty exciting how much different information we can actually gather from each McDonald's restaurant in terms of sales, almost down to 15 minutes, product mix, how many burgers and what kind of products are we selling at what time of day, to what kind of customers, average check. There's so many information And we can combine that with the employees. How many people do we need on the floor, on which stations to produce that kind of sandwiches, and so on and so forth. Now, all of this is cascaded in and used to create, very smart analytic people are compiling all of this information, and that is used to create reports, which is again the foundation of what we call free 1Q plans. So free 1Q is basically having a 3-year strategy, a 1-year plan, and then evaluating every quarter. So free 1Q, because every quarter, if we are off target according to the plan, we have to rethink our strategy and either change the plan, or we have to adapt to get back on track. So those free 1Q plans are made by leadership, executive. They looked 3 years into the future and make these kinds of plans together with inputs from franchisees on a market level. So you have a channel of information that is all ultimately being moduled, formulated, and ultimately spits out plans in the end. This is an annual thing that happens. So that is to answer your first question. The other one with the employees and removing the personal touch and everything else. Yes, I completely agree with you. It is. I would say it's not necessarily. It's out of need as well. We need to find ways to modify our business model, because at the end of the day, as you might know, the population is especially the population on what we call warm hands, young people who are able to go out and take jobs. That number is declining massively in many countries around the world. Working population, senior people, young people, students, everything else. We have a number of countries. I live in Japan. The population is absolutely plummeting. There's 125 million people in Japan today. In 2050, they're expecting to potentially get to 80 million. The average age is the highest in the world, but the young people don't get any kids. So you will have an aging population which will start to obviously pass away over the next 10 or 20 years, but there's nothing feeding in you young people. So how are we going to have, in Japan we have 3,000 restaurants today. We have an ambition to have 3,500. There's 162,000 employees in Japan. Maybe we need 180,000 at that time. But there will be fewer and fewer people to work in the restaurant. So you can see how this all pulls away from each other. And this is not just a Japan story. This is actually a global story happening in many countries around the world. So we need to innovate elements that can still, produce, the customer experience and make sure that we meet the customer demand, but maybe with fewer hands on deck. Or else we will be in serious trouble in 10, 20, 20 years. So that would be the short answer to that question. I hope it makes sense, Peter.
Thank you very much for sharing, Jacob.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and thank you very much for the wonderful questions that you had. As I just shared in the chat, we will have another webinar with Jacob on Monday. It's in Danish. So if you speak Danish, you're welcome there. The content will be the same, but I'm pretty sure that the questions are going to be different. So join us there, and please help us if you have some friends who speak Danish who wants to join us on Monday. Please spread the words. The link is in the notes. I will just give the word or the floor to Niels for a final comment. Niels.
Yes, thank you for moderating this session, Lars, and it's a pleasure to work together with you. And a special thank you to you, Jacob, for sharing your heavy knowledge. I've known you for 6 or 7 years now, and we have talked several times, and you have so many secrets. There are so many things underneath your company, and you have shared about how you stay on top on fast food, how you stay on top in franchising, how you stay on top of real estate, how you stay on top on globalization. That's really, really fascinating that it has been possible. And you have been in the company for so many years and listened to a person with such a global knowledge and on doing CBI in practice. That's really have been a pleasure for me. And
My pleasure. Thanks,
have been talked to you and listening to you so many times and worked with this called CBI more than 30 years. Even I for sure have learned something today and make my notes. So thank you very much, Jacob.
You're welcome.
That is really, yeah, thank you very much to both of you. I think it's been a fantastic journey for all of us who've listened in. And I just want to end up by asking you, all of you out there, if you want your company to be closer to McDonald's, if you want your company to work even harder with continuous business improvement, I will recommend you, because I know what Niels can do for you guys. Give him a call. You know, as we say in our corporation, that the first call is free and the rest of it is worth every cent of it. So you're always welcome to give Niels a call if you want to see how this could work for you, how you could work with continuous business improvement in your company. So the rest from here is just to say thank you to Niels, thank you to Jacob, all the way from Japan. Domo arigatou gozaimasu.
Very, very good.
I've had the opportunity to be in Japan, I think 75 times. I love the country. It's a beautiful place to be. And it is a country of continuous business improvement. You know, the entire country is kind of the essence of doing things right there.
That's true, yeah.
To the rest of you, thank you for your wonderful questions. You were also part of making this even more valuable. And I'm really looking forward to share with you and Niels some future webinars as well on continuous business improvement, how you can do this in a digital world without, you know, during the lockdown, how we can work with CBI, even though we are not allowed to be together. So we're really looking forward to do that. And I just want to wish you a wonderful weekend. And remember that continuous life improvement is also something that you can do during weekends. So be better and live well. Thank you very much for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.